I believe we're calling it. To give a quick introduction, we've known each other for a long time, and we've been race fans for even longer, and we have a lot of discussions about racing, and we often have different points of view. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. That's what this is going to be. We're going to be talking about racing. So I'm Brody. This is the other host here, Kevin. Say
Ahoy. I gotta say the ahoy.
of course.
Yeah, welcome to this racing podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun moments. It's going to be very laid back. Fair warning, there will probably be language at some point.
Yeah.
And just so you know that one day we do plan on adding a video portion to this. But for those of you, all of you who cannot see right now, I am wearing a NHRA, old man hat.
Straw hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's comfortable. It does a good job of blocking out the sun. 10 out of 10.
Fun fact, it is 100% paper.
It is. It
is.
is. And it was made in China.
So, less than 20 minutes ago was the end of the Indycar season, the 2022 Indycar Series season, and Will Power grabbed the championship.
And that was not much of a surprise to me. I all season long, I thought Will Power was going to do it. We want to talk about the renewed Will Power, the new version of him, like the chill, the calm, the one who doesn't get in his own way, and how that was lethal. And today, I think that he just executed. It was, Newgarden had one hell of a race that can't be denied.
So, and here's the thing, it seems like Joseph Newgarden has become the new Will Power.
Yeah.
This is the first point, and actually, we do actually have written notes, but this is the first point. Joseph Newgarden has become the new Will Power, where he has the raw pace, but he steps on his own toes. And he's done that several times this season to where it's the only reason he didn't win the championship. As for Will Power, coming into the season, we knew it was a different Will Power than in the past. This is not the Will Power that is just going to send it. That's going to go off flipping the bird to anybody who gets in his way. This isn't the same fearless willpower. This is a willpower that is more like let life come as it goes.
Exactly. And like years ago, 10 years ago, almost to the day, we saw him lose that title in a very spectacular way to Ryan Hunter-Reay, where he just completely threw it away. And then, there's 2011, which largely was out of his own hands. He got hit by Anna Beatriz in the pits in Kentucky, had damage on his car, lost a lot of spots, lost ground in the championship. And I believe if he was running up front, he probably could have won the championship in 2011 as well. 2010, I think he was spun or wrecked at Homestead. I don't remember exactly what happened. But it's a renewed, confident Will Power. He kept a level head. He didn't have the best 500
and actually, if you look at the Indy 500 was his weakest moment all season.
It was.
And here's the thing. When he won the championship in 2014, it was under different circumstances. He had done that by putting together amazing individual races. It was kind of an up and down season for him, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
This time around, he put in one of the most consistent seasons. He put in a Scott Dixon style season.
Yeah, when everyone else stumbled, like yesterday in qualifying, everyone else stumbled. Newgarden spun in the corkscrew on his bank lap. Dixon didn't make it out of Q1 again. Anyone who was in contention had problems. And the one guy who really didn't was Will Power. And that's the story of the whole season, I think, is Newgarden and Dixon stumble, and Power did not.
And, when you look at, Newgarden won, 4 races throughout the season? Scott McLaughlin won 3. Will Power won the championship with only 1 race win in Detroit. So, when you look at it, he didn't have statistically the best season compared to his teammates in terms of finishes, but he had the best average finish across the board. When you look at Newgarden, it was very up and down. Either he ended the day in victory lane, or it seemed like he ended the day either, mid-teens or on the back of a flatbed. When you look at Scott McLaughlin, either he was, on the podium, or he was sitting back where he was last year, mid-pack. Yeah. Will Power, if you look at him, he finished on the podium a fair amount, but when he wasn't on the podium, he was in the solid top 6. So he won this championship solely on consistency.
Well, look at the Indy 500 as well. That race is very important to the points battle because it's a double points race. That's what gave Marcus Ericsson the advantage for about half of the season. And if you look at Team Penske, this is what I think is interesting, is you look at Team Penske, overall, they had a horrible 500. Scott McLaughlin wrecked. Will Power and Newgarden both ran in the back all day. And Ganassi had an amazing 500.
Oh, yeah. Actually, you could even count Jimmy in there because he actually led quite a few laps. Now, granted, it was on strategy, but he had a solid race. All 5 Ganassi cars were fast at the Indy 500. It's just Pelot. He had that early, it's not a mistake. It's just bad timing.
Yeah. Same thing that happened to Dixon last year. Yeah.
Correct. And, Dixon had his pit lane speeding penalty. Jimmy crashed. That left Kanaan and Ericsson, and Ericsson's the one with the solid full season car. Kanaan's the one with the kind of shoestring together car that is meant to kind of puck around and maybe get a top 20 finish. But no, he came home third. So, and here's the thing. If you look at the last couple seasons since Roger Penske took over, it seems like Team Penske had been abused. It seems like Roger was so focused on everything else that he wasn't paying any attention to the IndyCar program, and they struggled. They truly struggled. If you look at, the last championship they won, it was with Newgarden. But if you look at 2020, 2021, yeah, they busted out wins, but last season, the first win didn't come until after the midway point at Mid-Ohio with Joseph Newgarden. And that's huge. But then this year they come out and they win the first 3 races, and then all 3 cars are, right up there pretty much all season. But then again, it was Will Power that was the most consistent. I mean, coming into this, of the 5, it was 3 Penske's, 2 Ganassis.
And with Power, when he has a bad race, like at the Indy 500, something about Power, and I think it's just the fact that he's been around as long as he has, he knows how to mitigate damage. He knows how to clot the bleeding and keep things from getting worse than they need to be. And I think that's something that he played to a T all season long. That's something we wouldn't have seen 10 years ago from Will Power. He would have choked this title away 100%.
And he did it several times before he actually won the title in 14. 2012, as you mentioned. You can't say 2011.
Yeah, that wasn't his fault.
Yeah, no. And, I mean, we all know the circumstances in the final couple of races of 2011, especially the final race. That wasn't anything to do with Will Power himself.
In 2010, he... God, I don't remember what happened. It was at Homestead. I think he just had a bad race. And it's I think part of it helps that's not on an oval anymore. Will Power, outside of winning his Indy 500, has never really been super great on the ovals.
Well, okay, if you look at Will Power, when he came into Champ Car, very, in the waning days of the series, and then he came to IndyCar. And then Helio had his legal troubles, his little tax evasion dealio, which, by the way, shout out to NBC Sports for actually mentioning that.
It's normally, and I feel like you don't hear about it as often as you should.
Scream it out, baby. Scream it out. Hey, listen.
The tax evasion special on Trading Paints.
Listen, he might be one of 4-time Indy 500 winners, but he's the only one to have a tax evasion charge against them.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, this is where shit goes off the rails.
So, back on topic. Overall, though, Will Power had an amazing season.
Well, actually, can I finish my point real quick?
Yes.
He came in, so he came into the IndyCar series with the Aussie Vineyards car.
KV Racing.
KV, yes. And then in 2009, he was thrust into Team Penske in the 3 car, and his performances were good enough where they actually brought him into the 3rd car. So his arrival at Team Penske was certainly not expected at first, but the results were there. And then when you look at, all of a sudden, right out the box, he's challenging for, wins and championships. He's challenging for an Indy 500 win. I can see why the Will Power of old existed, because he had the world thrown at him. When you join Team Penske, it's not like a casual thing. When you join Team Penske, you have to win the Indy 500 or you have to win the championship. And to have all that thrown on you when just a couple months back, or a year or so back, you were at the top of a dying championship. Yeah, I can see why the willpower of old existed.
And, aggression is a good thing sometimes. And that's something I think Power has learned over his time in IndyCar. Like, look at Dixon. Dixon is such a good example of something we talked about during the race, is letting the race come to you and not doing anything stupid. Just saying, you guys have fun. I'm going to sit back here. I'm going to run my race, and I'm just going to do what I need to do today. And that's exactly what Will Power did. And that's in my opinion, the Dixon approach. Look at 2015 when he was mathematically possible, but you would look at it and you'd say there's no way he's going to win this in 2015. And he did, because he just did what he was supposed to, and other people didn't.
Well, and if you look at 2015, it was kind of the opposite effect, where it was Team Penske pretty much all season. It came down to Power and Montoya.
Yep.
And Dixon was the huge outlier, and shit happened. And Dixon came away with the very unlikely championship, because that championship, in truth, was Montoya's to lose.
Yeah, and Power and him, for those of you who don't remember, got together. It was when the race was still at Sonoma, or Infineon, or Sears Point, whatever you prefer to call it. And
one and the same.
They took each other out, and Scott Dixon scooted on by and won himself. I think, didn't he win the race and the title?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was probably the only scenario where he was actually going to be able to win the titles, if he won the race and something happened to Power and Montoya.
Yeah.
And they managed to do that within a very short time frame of each other.
At a couple points today, it did look like we were going to have an exact repeat where the 2 and the 12 take each other out and the 9 scoots on by to win the title. But that didn't happen.
And talk about this new Will Power. So we've been going on about Will himself for, 10 minutes or so. Yeah. And it's deserved, because he has come back. He's like the slacking child in school, where when it comes down to finals, when it comes time for his contract renewal, he does just enough to get a new contract. I mean, we were talking about this in 2018. His time was winding down in the contract. He hadn't done really anything spectacular since 2015. And then he goes out and wins the fucking Indy 500.
Yeah. And
that secures him in for a little bit longer. And now, there was talks last year. Is it going to be Power or Pagenaud? If we know Team Penske is downgrading, but who is he going to cut? And now, all of a sudden, he comes out and he grabs his second championship. And the man's 41 years old. Yeah. He's not, this up-and-coming rookie anymore. He's a couple years past that. His career is... This isn't an insult to him, because he acknowledges it, that his career is closer to being finished than it is beginning. And I think that's where a lot of this whole new mindset of, fuck it, whatever happens, happens, comes from. And it's paying off in leaps and bounds.
And I think, if Penske can get a better oval program together for the Indy 500 next year, because that's the weird part, is Texas, Gateway, Iowa. They were the team to beat, and Indy comes around and they just don't show. And I think if they can put together a good 500 at Penske, especially with this renewed Will Power, he said in his post-race interview that confidence is everything, and winning a title hopefully will give him some confidence. Hopefully he won't have that number 1 curse on him next year, and Penske can put together a good month of May, and it won't be like an, oh no, Will Power will finally win a title as he should by clinching it like a race early. Because I always expected him to do that when I was watching him when I was younger. And like he's so good. I cannot believe he has only 2 titles right now.
That's weird to say still.
Yeah.
But I don't think coming into the season we would have said, hey, Will Power is going to win the championship.
Yeah.
It probably would have been, is Dixon going to get a second? Is Plo going to repeat? Is it going to be another Newgarden win? I say that with my eyes rolling, because no disrespect to Joseph Newgarden, no disrespect to Newgarden fans, but when he wins a race, there's no excitement behind it. It's just like, oh, hey, Joseph Newgarden won the IndyCar race.
I was saying, I don't remember what was it, about the 500, the GP in May. I started saying I think Will Power is going to win this title just because of his new frame of mind. Like, that's all I based it on, was he's chill. And that's all I have to, like, he's chill. His problem was he got in his own way. He wrecked himself. He tried too hard.
And the biggest example be 2012 Fontana.
Yep. The I cannot believe this is happening thing. One of the biggest head scratchers in modern racing, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, when I think it's gone a complete reversal because Newgarden used to be in that position where it's like, okay, cool. If this happens, cool. If this doesn't happen, cool. Yeah. But now it seems like Newgarden has the weight of the world on him when it doesn't need to be. You know what I mean? Like, he takes, little mistakes and he amplifies the seriousness of them when he didn't used to do that. So it's really strange. And I can see why Newgarden's doing it, because it's like willpower is staying consistent. And we know Scott McLaughlin's going to be around for a while. So, there's always the one thing about Team Penske is there is always somebody on the cutting block. No matter how much you look at it, there's always going to be somebody on the cutting block. When there was 4 cars, it would always bounce between Helio, Power, and Pagenaud because Newgarden was the golden boy. Well, now, Newgarden's not the golden boy at Team Penske anymore. Scott McLaughlin is.
Yep.
And Will Power just won himself a freaking championship, so he's going to be good for another year or two. So,
And going back to Penske's poor 500, McLaughlin wrecked, so he lost a lot of ground in the championship there. And something to keep in mind is that he was still a factor today. Yeah, you might have finished in 4th or 5th in the title race when it was all said and done. But had he not wrecked at the 500, McLaughlin would have been a lot more of a factor than I think people realize. So next year, that 3-car, look out for it.
Well, when you talk about McLaughlin at the 500, he was the best position out of the Penske cars when he crashed.
Yeah, he was.
So, at the beginning of the year, when I said, hey, McLaughlin pulling, winning St. Pete, you doubted him.
I mean, I didn't know anything about him. That's the thing. It's like, when these guys come in from Formula 2, I don't know who the hell they are. I don't know what they're all about. I've never seen them race before. As far as I know, they're just some guy who's got to prove himself to me.
Okay.
And he did that.
On the other hand, I can see where you were coming from, too. And I say this, because last year he had a very lackluster season, especially in a Team Penske car. Now, all of Team Penske had a lackluster season, but McLaughlin was more so. It's like, okay, this guy is just here because, he's joyriding it. That turns out not to be the case now, where he is actually a serious contender for, wins on a constant basis. He's a contender for championships, and that's huge for him. He learned a lot last year, and he's proven that, hey, I can do this just as well as I can drive a fucking supercar.
And I'm impressed. I think next year, like I said, that 3-car is going to be a factor. But
for the first time in a long time.
Oh, yeah. Maybe even, I'd say not ever, but 10 years at least.
Yeah.
So should we move on to the race?
Yeah,
synopsis?
because we've gone 15 minutes on Team Penske.
So of course, the first big thing to take away from the race today was the tires. Firestone tires. It's not anything necessarily with the tires. It's more that the track itself hasn't been paved in a very long time. So it's very abrasive. Wore those Firestones down. Firestone Reds almost seemed useless after about 10 laps. Even the standard,
which I want to throw in there, has seemed to be a reoccurring theme throughout the season.
I feel like, we did see a lot of red drop off. Where else was it? Was it Mid-Ohio? I think.
I know St. Pete.
Yeah, which the tire rules are interesting in IndyCar because you have to run both tires in the race.
If you're in the Fast Six, you have to run the tires you qualified on, plus you have to do a stint on sticker reds, so brand new reds. And you have to do a stint on black. So basically, they mandate 3 different compounds that you run if you're in the Firestone Fast Six.
Like F1, if it rains and it's declared a wet race, those rules go out the window. You can go whatever tire strategy you want after that. But it was interesting, and I don't think there's a problem with Firestone. I think next year we're going to see a repaved Laguna Seca. We're going to see
that's going to be an interesting race.
That is without tire strategy. I mean, that was a huge point of the race today. That's how Joseph Newgarden gained 23 spots. They started with the black tires, let everybody's reds burn off, and did the overcut, and they did it brilliantly. I didn't expect Team Penske to do anything but a perfect overcut. But the Firestones did not hold up today.
Well, Okay, and I want to throw this out there too, is 2 weeks ago, before Portland, there was a tire test at Laguna, and the tire truck didn't show up. The truck carrying the tires, I should say, didn't show up until late afternoon. They literally did their install laps around a dry Laguna Seca on wet tires because literally no tires had shown up. They only had wets on hand.
And pull tires, too. They're pull tires, which
they're
some of them still
toe tires.
use their, like the 2011 Centennial era tires.
Yeah, so 11-year-old tires and wets. Think about that.
You know, Firestone, I know they have a good reputation for having a safe tire, for having a quality racing tire. I think today was just like a minor blip, because it's not like Goodyear where we see tragic failures and tires literally blowing up and shredding.
Which didn't happen once. There was not one actual tire failure, but the drivability of the tires dropped off dramatically. And I mean, if I count it right, I believe Scott Dixon came in 4, maybe 5 times.
Yeah, I think it was a 4-stop race for everybody, so I think Dixon came in 5, maybe even 6.
Because the big talking point, whatever, was like, hey, is it going to be a 3-stop race or a 4-stop race? And by lap 20, you could throw the 3-stop out the window.
Yeah.
You know, like Rossi and Herta, when they tried to do the 3-stop, their race got completely fucked up because of the fact that, hey, it wasn't going to happen.
And we saw a lot of interesting tries with strategy. You know, we saw the 26 team try their first. I think they were the first to try the 4-stopper. Malukas, their team completely blew it. They had the Rookie of the Year in the bag. They completely threw it away by doing a terrible strategy. Yesterday, if any of you watched the racer videos with Malukas, I don't know, they talked about how the Reds were bad. Like, the Reds were just so bad, and I don't know why they put them on those Reds, but whatever. I don't know if the tire deg was by design, because I know sometimes they do put that in there by design. Like at Texas, the tires are made to degrade a little bit quicker than normal to, you know, get everybody spaced out. But if it was done intentionally, I do not like it. And if it wasn't, I mean, good thing they're repaving it, because this isn't going to be a problem next year.
So on to the next point is Juncos Racing. They qualified P2, another great showing from Callum Ilott, but it seems like every time that they have kind of gotten inched really close to that brass ring of a IndyCar top 5 or podium. In this case, it could have been a podium. Something always stupid has happened. Now, it wasn't... Today, it was an engine failure. So, that one you cannot blame on Callum.
Yeah.
But the problem with Callum Ilott is he does make some rash moves that get him in trouble. And we've seen this throughout the season. And, we saw him at the Indy 8 Hour last year in a factory Ferrari and ended up making a rash move and hitting the wall going into road course turn 1. And we saw more of the same stuff where if he's in a good position, mixing it up with the big boys, and I don't mean that as a disrespectful term. I mean it as in like the bigger teams, mixing it up with the Andretti's, Ganassis, and Penske's, which the Juncos has proven they're capable of doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But when they find themselves in that position, Callum just makes little mistakes.
Don't forget Juncos' most famous moment, bumping Fernando Alonso from the 2019 Indy 500. So we know there's competence, we know there's speed, we know they can do it.
It's just, can they piece together, a great solid driver with a fast race car, a great engineering team? Like, can they piece all these little things together? I believe they can, and I think Callum, give him a year or two, and he can be a real star.
It takes time sometimes. Look at, you could go either way. You could go the Dale Coyne way, where they used to be, Dale Coyne used to be a joke, used to be backmarker.
Pay drivers.
Yeah, exactly. Now they are a contender sometimes, and then you have the other side of the street.
Now, let me put it like this, and I'm going to get killed by Steve for saying this, but
no.
But they still got the pay driver aspect into it. Yeah. But they have a competent pay driver.
I think he could actually, get it right on his driving ability. But the other way Juncos could go is the AJ Foyt Racing route, where they never improve, never get better, never even try to get better. They're okay with being a laughingstock of the series and being the bunt of
But they've shown that
kind
they're not content with that. I mean, if you look at their first IndyCar outings in 2017 and 2018,
Yeah.
and even 19, they had back when they had Kyle Kaiser, they were back markers. But now they actually have a genuine talent. Callum comes from the Formula One feeder, series.
At Ferrari Academy.
Yep.
So he has talent. He knows how to make a race car go fast.
It's just, can he piece together one full race? And again, this isn't us bashing Callum, in all due respect. Don't take that as us bashing Callum. It's constructive criticism like, hey, listen, when you're in a good position, there's no reason to Dalton Kellett it all over the damn racetrack.
I see what you did there. You segued.
I know.
I was going to make one like, we go from our one caution of the day to our almost caution of the day.
Almost couple cautions.
And AJ Foyt's racing.
Dalton Kellett.
Dalton Kellett.
So,
man.
listen,
Man, oh, man.
if any of you know me on a personal level, you know my views on Dalton Kellett. They're not favorable. And listen, there's some people who don't belong on a racetrack. This is where I'm gonna get myself in trouble, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm gonna bounce back and I'm gonna say nice things at least.
So if you watch him in practice sessions, particularly at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he has made in the past made some moves that he shouldn't do. The boy doesn't think clearly all the time. And Dalton, if you ever listen to this, I don't hate you yet. But, when you're mixing it up in the middle of a pack and you got the Scott Dixons, you got, the Joseph Newgardens around you, take a moment to think about the position you're in. You're in an AJ Foyt racing car. You're not going to contend for an Indy 500 win. Just take a breather and think about the moves that you're about to make, because it could be a very serious situation if you make the wrong move. Thank God that it hasn't happened yet. There has been some pretty Dalton Kellett moves throughout the season, but please just think when you're in the car. And I get you don't want to, tub a car, because that's a lot of money out of your family's pocket to replace said tub. But just think a little bit.
So, my thing with Dalton Kellett,
I knew that was gonna.
He's smart. He's a STEM graduate. He's a nice guy, but I'm getting to that point where it's like maybe he ought to just be a driver coach or something. I respect the effort. But, like Jimmy Johnson improved from last season to this season. He was running 16th at certain points today. I think there was a road course earlier this year where he finished in the top 15. So, there is definitely, people who have gone up and people who have not.
So, on my Twitter account, every race this season, I've had to post the goddamn Kellett meme.
Yeah, the...
every single fucking
I find
race.
It interesting how when we watch Indy 500 practice, we never see Dalton Kellett get picked up. Everyone just goes the fuck around him because he never gets to lead the line. They always just pass him because there's that. I don't know all about it, but I know the basics of there's an etiquette with drivers at Indy where everybody takes time being the front of the train, and that way everyone can have time in the draft, and you don't get any data in clean air, obviously, but. I've noticed that Dalton Kellett, if he ever is in the front of the line, like the big line of 10, 20 cars, whatever it can be.
He gets swallowed.
Yep, they just go right around him. Like I'm just going to guess it's just that Foyt car doesn't have any speed, and he's just slowing up the line anyway. I don't know, but...
Exactly. I mean, what's the point of pucking around at 200 miles per hour when you could be going 230 plus?
And I think it is worth mentioning that Kyle Kirkwood, who is the first guy, I think, to win all 3 Road to Indy titles... also sucked ass this year in AJ Foyt's team.
Well, and and that's actually a good point for later on, is that he's going to actually be able to show his stuff next year at Andretti.
Hopefully. We'll see. I don't think Andretti is as good as they used to be.
And actually, that's a point that wasn't on the list, but it's worth mentioning, is that Andretti struggled this year.
They did.
I mean, their star driver, Colton Herta, he's, mixed up in a Formula One controversy, which is something we can get to later. But, Romain Grosjean, he's fast. There's no doubt about that. But Romain Grosjean makes the same mistakes that, in respect, Dalton Kellett does sometimes.
Yeah.
And doesn't think about what he's doing before he does it. And that gets him in a rough position.
My point is that Grosjean, I think, did better last year in a freaking Rick Ware Dale Coyne car than he did at Andretti, who has won championships and 500s, and I think Mid-Ohio is a perfect symbol. That is the perfect thing to look at. Andretti is not working as a team, and it showed all season long because they're all out for themselves, they're all selfish, they're all idiots. I mean, we saw contact between Herta and freaking DeFrancesco today. It's ridiculous. Andretti needs to get their shit together.
Well, okay, so let's put this in perspective, though. When you look at Andretti Autosport, who's the first person you think of right now in their current team?
Rossi. For me.
Well, that was a rhetorical question on our side.
Yeah, I know.
But it's Colton Herta.
But that's the problem now.
Colton Herta is the face of the team. And when you look at, okay, so Herta, the Gamebridge car has been around longer than Herta. Okay, Group 1001 has been around since Herta was still in Indy Lights. So that sponsor is a team sponsor, not a Colton sponsor. His dad is on the box, who, by the way, still co-owns Marco Andretti's car for the Indy 500. Okay?
Oh, that's weird.
And Devlin DeFrancesco, or as I call him, San Francisco.
Yep, Dale Lynch Jr.
So, he's a pay driver. And he really didn't do much all season with that number 29 car. Now, in regards, the 29 car hasn't done much since it came back. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
but
mean, Hinch didn't do anything with it last year, so.
The DHL car. I mean, DHL is scaling back their sponsorship, obviously. It's visible in how many different cars that Grosjean ran this year when, literally every year since DHL came on board, it's just been a solidly DHL car, with the exception of 2011 when it was half sun drop.
So Andretti, they just don't have a leader right now. That's the problem. Is there's been too much moving around. You don't have somebody who's been in the series for a long time like Rossi now, especially now, because the driver with the most experience there is freaking Colton Herta,
and he came on board in the series in 2018.
Yeah, and I have. Yeah, anyone who knows me personally knows I am not a believer of Colton Herta. I don't think he's as good as everyone makes him out to be. He makes a lot of careless mistakes. I don't think he is ready to be in a leadership position, and I think unless Andretti can do something, it's just going to continue to be a problem because Grosjean is Grosjean. Herta has his eyes on F1. DeFrancesco doesn't belong in the series, and Kirkwood is a big, fat question mark.
Okay, and actually I want to use this line. So when Chip Ganassi Racing was Dixon Kanaan, Chilton, and Kimball, we always heard about how it's two different Ganassi teams.
Yep.
Right now, in the Andretti Autosport stable, it's four different teams, just with one name.
Yep.
You got the 26 car with Colton Herta, the one that everybody focuses on. You have Alexander Rossi, the Napa machine, the guy that's leaving at the end of the year. You have Romain Grosjean, the DHL car. And we talk about how there's individual teams amongst one big team, but this one is four really divided teams. It's not the all Andretti that they promote it to be on social media.
Yeah.
This is four individual or single car teams under one roof.
Like I said, Mid-Ohio is the embodiment of this problem at Andretti, but I think it's just kind of been a brewing problem. I feel like Grosjean was just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. It's just weird how.
And here's another thing. This is not a new issue.
No.
This issue has been around for several years now. I think the last time that we saw a truly united Andretti was in the Aero Kids.
What was it? Marco Hunter-Ray.
Hunter-Ray, Rossi, about 2017, really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, because it's just the drivers don't need to be best friends, hanging out on their boats every weekend, but they at least need to get along and be able to work together for the betterment of the team. And I think that's something that you see at Ganassi. That's why Ganassi throwed down at Indy and almost swept the Fast Six. That's why Penske is so good, and why Penske is always 1, 2, 3 in qualifying, because these drivers can work together, bounce off each other, give each other helpful feedback. And that is not something you're going to see at Andretti. That is going to continue to be a problem. Andretti is going to continue to suck, and my Andretti rant is over. Thank you.
Well, okay, and I'm going to feed off what you just said. If you look at Andretti, and you look at, the 4 drivers, Herta does not want to see the other 3 succeed. He wants to be the face of Andretti. Rossi doesn't give 2 damns about the other 3 drivers because he's out the fucking door. It doesn't matter what happens to everybody else. Screw the team. Grosjean, he's had beef with pretty much everybody in that team, and nobody wants to share data with him. And DeFrancesco, he's just there because somebody's footing the bill. When you look at Ganassi, and I know I'm using the Ganassi-Andretti comparison, but it's a fitting comparison because the teams are similar size. Mm-hmm. When you look at Ganassi, you have Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan that are feeding off of each other. You have these 2 long-term veterans that have been around and seen shit in this sport. They're trying to actively help Jimmy Johnson, Marcus Ericsson, and Alex Plow. And those 3, or 2.5, they're actively trying to teach the older guys new tricks to become even faster and better. So everybody is helping everybody there. When you look at Andretti, it's not all for one. It's not one for all. It's all for one.
Exactly. And it just sucks, to see a team that's so divided. And we wanted to talk about Rossi, so while we're talking about Andretti, I think it's going to be interesting to see him and not at Andretti, at a team like McLaren where he can get feedback and he can have a mutual respect among his teammates as long as he shows it. Because, Rossi has, Mid-Ohio, he definitely didn't play innocent with Grosjean. So,
well, and here's one thing about Alexander Rossi that we all seem to forget. He was never a pay driver.
No.
So let's go back even further to the newer IndyCar fans that weren't around during this time. He was an F1 driver. He was with Manor, so that means he wasn't contending for points or anything like that. He was just kind of there pucking around, which is, one of the reasons F1 is...
Yeah,
but
he still turned more laps in an F1 car than 99.99% of drivers ever have or ever will.
Correct, or even people.
Yeah, or Colton Herta ever will. I am bold enough to say that.
Okay, so if you remember back to before the Indy 500, he was running a unsponsored black and white number 98. He didn't have sponsorship. He didn't have, Napa backing him this whole way. He didn't have that. Napa only came on board for the 2016 Indy 500, and it wasn't even corporate Napa.
That's right. I guess I can tell the short version of this story. I got there the day before Fast Friday. And I noticed Rossi's car was in Napa colors, and I said something to the guy standing next to me as they were pulling out of the garage. He's like, "Oh yeah, I helped put this deal together. It's a bunch of local Napas. It's not corporate Napa. We're just doing the 500." And that's how that Napa sponsorship came about for Rossi. It wasn't even corporate Napa.
It goes down as the second latest sponsorship deal to come together for Andretti Autosport that would result in that victory.
Yep.
It would get superseded 1 year later by Ruoff that came on board for Friday, or not Fast Friday, Carb Day.
Yep.
But after that, all of a sudden, hey, Napa was on board. Now, corporate Napa didn't sponsor him that much for the rest of the season.
I think it was corporate Napa at Detroit, and then he was back to the blank car for the rest of the season.
And then even 2017, he had the Check It for Andretti sponsorships. He had the military vets.
Basically the unsponsored Andretti car.
Correct, and there was quite a few of those during that time. It wasn't just Rossi.
No.
It was Marco, too.
And it's going to be interesting. I think the thing that's going to be interesting for me is this is completely uncharted territory for Alexander Rossi. He has never driven an Indy car that was not built in that Andretti shop, because at that time, yes, it was Bryan Herta, but it was actually Andretti Autosport with a Bryan Herta sticker on the car.
Well, actually, I kind of want to reverse course and finish kind of the Alexander Rossi story. if you look at 2018, it looked like he hadn't reached his pinnacle yet. He was still fast all the time in the R18.
Yeah.
It seemed that he was always, a contender. We saw with the Pocono race in 18. He was just the class of the field that day. And there were several races where he was the class of the field. 2019 Road America. And then the Aeroscreen era hit. And ever since the beginning of the 2020 season, the Alexander Rossi that we knew from 16 to 19 didn't exist. It was just, he seemed lost. He seemed dazed and confused on what he was doing.
And I think that I'm going to finish my thought off of that, is this uncharted territory that he's going into is going to be a good thing, because I think he needs that change of scenery. He needs to get into a position where, he's not fighting for scraps, where he is right alongside Pato Award, stride for stride, as, the number one car. I'd like to think those McLaren cars are pretty damn even, because Rosenqvist is always right there.
And,
so,
when we look back a couple years, Oliver Askew was nowhere near Pato.
Yeah.
So that number 7 car obviously has gotten better. Of course, the ongoing joke is Zach Brown will offer anybody a contract at this point.
Yeah. As far as the rest of that team, that's a big question mark. Maybe we'll get to that later, because that is a lot to discuss.
Here's my biggest fear. And again, now we're going to start treading into the murky waters of the unknown, where, there's still that third seat that's open.
Yep.
There is no continued word. We already know that Rossi and Pato are going to be there. But, and this is a big if Rosenqvist ends up there, and all the engineering talent goes towards Pato and Rossi, are we going to see Rosenqvist back to the form of where he was last year, where he was playing, now third fiddle to his teammates? Yeah. Because that number 7 car, even going back to the Schmidt-Peterson era, no, they did not put 2 jacks or a shit worth of engineering power behind their second car. It was always behind Hinch, and it was behind Pato. Now that they're expanding to a third car, is it going to be behind Rossi and Pato, or is it going to, be evenly sprung out amongst the 3 cars? And if I was, Rosenqvist and or Palou, I'd be concerned about that.
I think, the third car at McLaren hopefully will come up faster than the second car at McLaren did. There's so many questions, though. Like, is there even going to be a third car at McLaren next year at this point? Who knows? We were talking about it earlier. Maybe Zach is going to bring back Felix for 1 year to help get everything rolling in that team to get the seat warmed for Palou. But I don't know. It's going to be... If McLaren can keep the speed they have now, I think Rossi is definitely going to be a threat next year. I think he deserves it. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for him. It's going to be a better fit for him than I think Andretti was. And
not to mention, he's going away from Honda power for the first time.
Yep, going into Chevy power. So I think it's going to be a good season. I think it's going to take him to about post-Indy to start getting his feet wet. Maybe at Indy, because he's always surprised at the 500.
Yeah, and what was I trying to say there?
I don't know.
Okay, so Alexander Rossi. Tell you what, I don't think it's going to take him too awfully long to kind of get his feet wet there, because I think Rossi's biggest downfall at Andretti was if he was not the center of attention. And keep in mind, he's an F1 driver. I think Lando Norris put best when it came out that Danny Rick was not going to be returning with McLaren, that I don't get paid to give a damn about Daniel Ricciardo's performance. I get paid to care about me and me alone. And you have to wonder how much of that mentality is still with Rossi. Even though he wasn't there that long, I'm sure that's the same mentality that's coming up in the feeder series.
And he had a very weird road in IndyCar in his rookie season. That's something you all got to keep in mind here, too. He was a rookie who just got out of F1. He kind of landed this IndyCar ride, and he wasn't too sure, it seemed. And next thing you know, he wins the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500, and he is one of the biggest names in the series. He is the marquee story almost every week. Oh, the 100th running winner, Rossi. And they still introduce him as the 100th running winner at the Speedway. And I think that comes with a certain amount of pressure, especially in your rookie season. It comes with a certain amount of expectation, and I just hope I hope we can get like that good Rossi back that would kick ass and would contend for a title. I in 2018, 2019 he damn near won it.
And when you look at the McLaren cars all year, you have to realize that they were contenders almost every single race, and they were good on the road courses, they were good on the ovals, and they were good on the short ovals.
And in the Indy 500 too.
That's what I meant by oval.
Yeah, Texas, I don't remember.
Rosenquist got pole.
And Pato won.
Yeah.
So, McLaren...
They have an all-round good performance on every discipline in the IndyCar series.
About well-rounded teams earlier. I did not even think about McLaren. That's just... I'm not used to that Schmidt team. Oh, excuse me. That Schmidt team being a factor. It's still weird.
All right, so I think now's a good time to move on to the next one. I'd say let's go Scott Dixon next.
All right. Yeah,
since we're talking about drivers.
So yeah, should I give the non-biased review and then you can come in with the bias?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we wanted to put a little bit of focus on Scott Dixon's season. The number 9 PNC Bank Honda. Normally, so Scott Dixon in 2021 had a pretty stellar season. I don't remember how many races he won, but
2020.
2020, yeah. 2020 was a really good season.
Oh man, I mean Ganassi won like the first 4 races, and 3 of those were Dixon.
And last year was average for Dixon, and this year the sole problem was and this is what bit them in the rear every single race is they could not get out of Q1. We talked about it with some team members at Indy, how they were struggling to get out of Q1, and it was always something out of their control. Like, at Laguna Seca, it was Joseph Newgarden spinning, and other times it was like there was a miscommunication about a wing adjustment, or they went out with like a flat tire or something, it just shows you that qualifying is super important.
And I mean, today showed it too.
Yeah, and today, I don't know exactly what happened today.
He never really broke into the top 10.
Yeah.
But here's the thing with Scott Dixon. And this one I'm going to be unbiased on. I know that's hard for me. I'm wearing a freaking Scott Dixon shirt right now. So, this year, yes, his qualifying performances have sucked. However, he has shown that he's still the quality driver. He didn't have the results that he normally does. He had 2 wins on the season, which is more than he had last year, granted. However, yes, he had very bad qualifying performances pretty much everywhere he went. But he made up for it in the races. When you look at the season, there was barely not a time where he did not finish in the top 5.
Yeah.
And that shows that Scott Dixon's as good as he ever was. However, yes, qualifying is important in the IndyCar series. Qualifying is not just a throwaway thing. There's people that ended up at the back that ended up qualifying or ended up doing better in the race, like Joseph Newgarden. But the reason Dixon was in this championship hunt was because of consistency. However, Will Power was just way more consistent. And I think qualifying does, play a big factor in that.
I mean, you can't entirely fault Ganassi and Dixon on qualifying because the Indy 500, they literally set a new record for the pole speed.
But that's a different circumstance.
That is. And that's the thing is I think that my personal belief, and so this isn't, I'm not saying this is a fact, it's just what I believe to be true, that Dixon is putting all of his eggs into winning the 500, and now winning the championship comes as an afterthought. Like, you look at his performances up to the 500, they weren't the best. Then he had a pretty darn good 500, and then, that good enough 500 was enough with the double points to put him where he needed to be in the championship hunt, and so on and so forth. So I don't know. I just feel like they're focusing on trying to win the 500. They want to get Dixon a second. I mean, they've come so close.
And when we talk about the 500, and if we do a 500 pre-show next year, this is definitely going to be something to mention. Every year for the last several years, they have been the favorite going into Indy 500. Ever since 2020, ever since Michael Cannon came on board. They have been the favorite. 2020 had the freak Sato thing.
Yep.
Where, they just didn't go when they should have. They didn't count on Spencer Pigot. Last year was the caution coming out at the very wrong time and them running out of fuel because of, the kind of the yellow procedures in IndyCar. And then this year was completely on Dixon himself. So, and this one is, like, a lot of this stuff we could save for the Indy 500 video next year. But on a season whole, Dixon, once again, he showed that he's as good as he has been for the last 5 to 10 years. It's just the qualifying performances have killed him this year. If he would have qualified in the top 10 and raced, he would have had 4 or 5 victories.
Yeah.
He would have had, he would have probably been the 2022 series champion. He probably would have gotten his 7th championship. It's just the qualifying performances have absolutely ass-fucked him this year.
I mean, the thing about the 500 in the last 3 years is he, outside of this year, even this year to a certain extent, he did everything he needed to, and so did the team, and it's especially 20 and 21 is just poor circumstances. And that's the thing with racing, is if you put yourself in the right position enough times, eventually it's going to pay off. And, I mean, who knows? Maybe Scott will win the 500 and the double points will push him to win his 7th title. Who knows?
Well, okay, and here's something that everybody forgets about 2021, the Indy 500, is of the cars that got caught out in that whole mess, I forgot who else it was. I think Colton... Rossi. Dixon was the only one to get a lap back on pace because obviously there's no wave around in IndyCar. He finished the race on the lead lap. He got it back through strategy and pace.
Didn't he get the lap back this year too?
He didn't go a full lap down.
Oh yeah, good.
But he did lose a lap because they had trouble getting the car refired because it actually did run dry on fuel. He got his lap back on strategy and pace and was on the lead lap at the end of the race. He wasn't just puckering around at the back of the field the rest of the race. He was actually still trying to fight for it. He ended up finishing, I believe, around 20th, but, again, they have the raw pace. They just need to string it together. And the biggest challenge is stringing another amazing season like they did in 2020.
I think, I hope next year Ganassi, because that's the weird part is I felt like the 9 car was the main one having problems. I didn't think Ericsson did have some uh-ohs in qualifying, and so did Polo, I think. But at the end of the day, I thought it was just, I don't know. It was uncharacteristic of Ganassi to have that many issues in qualifying. I hope next year they're a little bit better. They still can't be mad. They finished, 3rd and 5th, I think, in the championship. So, and they won the Indy 500, and
let's talk about Marcus Ericsson really quickly. He's finally starting to come into his own element. He debuted in 2019, fresh out of F1. He did not get the love and attention that he needed at, Aero Schmidt Peterson in 2019. He was still playing second fiddle to Hinchcliffe. Yeah. And again, nothing against Hinchcliffe because, he's the one who brought the Aero money. He was the center pillar of the team. Ericsson didn't have the love and support that he needed, because when you look at the history of the 7 car and you realize that, oh, hey, Mikhail Loshin filled that seat prior to him and he was a pay driver with all intents and purposes from SMP Racing, a Russian bank. The 7 car was just there. Aero was almost like a courtesy sponsor on that car.
Yeah.
He didn't have what he needed to perform. And then he comes out in 2020 at Ganassi, which seemed like a very odd move from Chip Ganassi at the time. But, the potential was definitely there for him. Last year, he started to show his potential. At Detroit taking the win. He took one other win on the season last year, and he had pace, and he showed it. There were still some inconsistent moments, but then you come to this year where it still amazes me to say this, but Marcus Ericsson won the fucking Indy 500.
Well, the thing about it is, I know you remember, for those who don't know, we went to we get bronze badges and we go to the track every day for Indy 500 practice.
That's right. We don't have media credentials.
Exactly.
And never will.
And I remember almost every day after practice, I'm pretty sure almost every day I said something about Marcus Ericsson along the lines of, dude, I think Marcus is going to be my dark horse. Like, Marcus might do this. I know early on in the month we were all saying, like, yes, but if it comes down to a brawl like it did, is Marcus going to have the know-how and the snuff and the manhood to do it?
Well,
and yes, he does.
Okay, and let me put this in there. If it came down to, and the way we figured it out, especially after qualifying, if it came down to a Chip Ganassi three-way battle for the win, if it came down, because we did not factor Tony Kanaan into it that much.
Honestly, yeah, no, we didn't think TK was going to be a factor, but...
we knew he was going to be in the top 10, top 15, but we didn't think it was going to be them. And if it was going to come down to a three-way battle between the 8, 9, and 10 cars, the way that we pictured it playing out was it was going to be Scott Dixon taking the win because he is cool and consistent. Yep. He knows how to click off laps at the Speedway. He's the all-time lap leader in the Indy 500 now. It was going to be Plo that would make a stupid, reckless mistake. And again, no disrespect to Plo. I like Plo. I do.
Oh, yeah, we've all agreed Plo's going to win 2 500s, exactly 2. He's a 2-time winner. Just look at him.
And then it was going to be Ericsson that wouldn't be able to pull it off, but he was going to be fighting for it. And it turned out that once Plo and Dixon faltered, it was Ericsson that was left to pick up the pieces, and holy shit, he did. And he brought home the biggest race, and I'm not afraid to say this, the biggest race in the world.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, my thing with the 500 is, look at it as an endurance race. It's like any other 500-mile race. The Daytona 500, the Talladega 500, the Southern 500, the old Pocono 500s, It's all about surviving until like that last 100 miles or that last 50 miles. And this is the thing I noticed about Ericsson is like Santino Ferrucci, because if you paid attention to Santino in the 500 this year, you would notice like all day long he wasn't making crazy passes. He wasn't, getting out and trying to mix it up with the leaders. He was just sticking in the top 10. Sometimes, most of the day, I think Marcus was right around the top 5, maybe 5th. And all day, just sit there, and then when it's time to go, he went. And like that's the thing about I talked about it with super media all-star and famous YouTuber David Land about how I just could not believe when Marcus went around those McLarens, he was just gone. He put it in like 8th gear and just holy crap.
Correct. And once the red flag hit, it was like, okay, because on the restarts the McLaren cars had the Ganassis. They did. But on the long runs, it was the Ganassi cars that were able to just take off. And this was going to be a short distance. And it showed that, hey, Pato could do it. Pato could do it. But Ericsson had the balls just to stick it in one and hold it.
Now, I will say, I've said this, I don't know if I've said this to you, but if there was one more restart with TK in 3rd, TK would have gone around both of them on the outside and won the fucker. Because the only person better at restarts at Indianapolis than Scott Dixon, and honestly, I actually will say he's better than Scott Dixon, is Tony fucking Kanaan.
Sticking up for Tony Kanaan, holy shit.
He can restart at Indy. I will give him that. He won the race in 2013 off of a restart, and I thought he was about to do it again. I was sitting there like, if this goes yellow again... Well, actually, at that point... I was like, TK, I thought he could have done it. And I don't know. The 500 is still a lot to take in. A lot happened. We saw a lot of strength from people I don't think we expected to see strength from. I don't think, no offense to him or any of his fans, but I didn't think anybody really expected to see Pato in 2nd, legitimately contending for the victory, or Felix in 4th. Again, legitimately contending for the victory.
Yeah, and Juan Pablo Montoya was somewhere in 20th.
Yeah, and that 3rd car is still a new car. But I don't know, Ganassi was just... It was weird. I feel like almost all of Ganassi put their eggs in the 500 basket just because they showed up at Indy. And...
Well, here's the thing. And I know we're going long on the CGR subject, but you're Scott Dixon. Okay, you have 6 championships. You have been in the sport, approaching 20 years. Next year is going to be his 20th freaking season.
It's crazy.
Okay. Yeah, you have all the championships. You have all these wins. You have all of these pole positions. You have one Indy 500. Okay, you look at the people that you're compared against. You look at, I guess Mario is a bad example because he only had one Indy 500. But if you look at all the comparisons with AJ Foyt,
Buddy Rice, Buddy Lazier, Eddie Cheever Jr.
Fucking Takuma Sato has more wins than Scott Dixon at the Indy 500.
I mean, the thing that I take away from it is it's nice to see that Ganassi can still win the 500. I mean, that was a 10-year gap when we did not see a Ganassi car. I'd say even almost in contention to win the damn thing. And, I mean, Dixon was in 2020.
14, 15.
But like 19, 18.
Well, 15 were in contention.
Yeah.
16, no. 17 at the start.
Yeah. 18, I don't think so.
No.
19.
Oh, no. Well, Dixon finished third in 18.
That's right.
19, no. 20, yes. 21, yes.
I mean, that's
I mean, the last couple of years, Ganassi has truly shown up at the Indy 500, but they haven't been able to piece it together as a team. And they finally were able to piece it together as a team. And this goes back to what we were talking about with the Andretti segment, and Ganassi is just a cohesive unit. They are one unified team. And when we look back when they ran 4 cars previously, they absolutely struggled because it really was two-car teams under one banner.
And I was going to say this when we were talking about the unified team.
Though, Max Chilton almost won an Indy 500.
It's true, most laps led in 2017. But I can say this as somebody who's a full supporter of Jimmy, that I don't think Jimmy Johnson would have nearly been as where he was if he didn't have Dixon, Kanaan, and Dario Franchitti telling him how to get around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in an IndyCar. I think he probably would have been way in the back, struggling, and I think it was that teamwork that got not only him, but Marcus Ericsson up to speed. Like, Marcus... He talked about it, how when he came over here, he ran the 500 first, thinking it was going to be one thing, and he realized it was totally different, and he said to himself, I want to be good at this. I want to do this. And Ganassi gave him the platform he needed to do that, and I hope they can get a better full season program together for that 8 car.
Right. So, okay, I want to throw this one out there as well. Jimmy was a wild card at Indy. He really was.
Yeah.
Since we're just recapping the IndyCar season at this point.
Yeah, I figured we could call this episode like Laguna Seca post-race chat and season wrap-up. I don't know.
Right. So, at the Indy 500, Jimmy really showed, like, hey, he can do this.
And Iowa, too.
One thing that amazed me was... even in the, pre-month of May test, the, annual test in the April month, he was running a line that nobody else would. He would go down to the rumble strips. He would go down to that little concrete patch in the corners, and that's a NASCAR line. That's not an IndyCar line. And he would hold it, and he would hold it, and he would hold it, and it's like, oh my God, that's surely not going to... He made it fucking work.
Well,
and you know what?
All but, like 10 laps?
The thing with Jimmy... is, especially on the ovals, because when you go back to his NASCAR days, he was never really that great on a road course anyways.
Yeah, only won one race because Marcus Ambrose shut off his car going up a hill.
When you look at, he has always struggled on road courses. But the oval program, specifically Indianapolis, has been a place that he has been amazing at. And he has been able to do things in an IndyCar that nobody else on the IndyCar grid can do. Was he, a threat for pole position? No. Was he a little bit of a combustible element? Not fully. He wasn't no damn Dalton Kellett, don't get me wrong. Yes, because here's the thing. I did, give Jimmy some shit throughout the month. I'll admit, and I was wrong. Sorry. He pieced it together. He pieced together the practices. He made it through qualifying. If he didn't have that bobble in qualifying, he would have been in the Fast Six.
Yep.
But he couldn't piece the race all the way together. He did up until the very end. Now, I guarantee you that wasn't just a him issue either. I believe, honestly, like, hey, those cars are naturally treacherous late in a run, full of fuel, and, fresh
And
tires late in the
turn
race.
2 was dangerous all day. I mean, that's where all but one of the wrecks happened. So,
I mean,
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there.
right. I mean, if you had Arenas VK.
Yeah, he outlasted VK, Grosjean, Islet. Who else wrecked over there? Karam, that was after him. So he outlasted some pretty big names.
Yeah. So, props to Jimmy. I mean, I hope he comes back next year because I really want to see what he can do because every year he is getting better. Last year he was consistently 1-2 laps down every race.
Yeah.
Now he's, granted at the tail end of the lead lap, but he's not 1 or 2 laps down.
I want to see him back at Texas. I want to see him back at Iowa. I want to see him back at Indy. I want to see him back at Indy, and I want to see him confident at Indy. I think, we talked about it at the beginning of this with Will Power, how confidence goes a long way in racing. Look at Marco Andretti. He has no confidence. He is me in a freaking race car. He is anti-confidence in a human being, and look at how his career has gone. And I think if Jimmy can look at what he did last year and say, well, considering I drove NASCAR for this long, and I've never done anything like this ever, and I've never driven a car over 230 miles an hour, and I did that. I held my foot in it when I almost wrecked in my qualifying run. I think, I think Jimmy will be better at Indy next year. I want him to finish the race. That's all I wanted this year was I wanted him to finish the race. And I didn't get that, but I think next year it wouldn't be egregious to say finish the race on the lead lap.
Yeah. And finally, let's move on to the rookies. And then we got one other point that shies away from IndyCar. The rookies, the rookie class this year, Christian Lundgaard, David Malukas, Kyle Kirkwood.
And Callum Islet.
Yeah, Callum too.
Is there one more? No, that was it. Right? No, Devlin DeFrancesco.
Okay, well, there's a reason we forgot Devlin.
Yeah, he's irrelevant. That's why.
So let's focus on the people who actually did shit.
So,
Kyle Kirkwood. So listen, Kirkwood, very highly touted coming up through, the feeder system because he had won championships along the way.
There was another rookie. Tatiana Calderon.
Again, irrelevant. I have my own personal thoughts, but that's irrelevant as well.
Yeah.
Damn. But Kirkwood, as the IMS video boards say, he had a lackluster season. He showed moments of promise, and this wasn't a Kyle Kirkwood issue. This was an AJ Foyt racing issue. Kirkwood knew that there was a ride in the promised land used to be promised land at Andretti Autosport. He just needed to wait for a seat to open, and it did, and he's going to be, happily moving over to the 27 car next year, taking over from Rossi. But this year was kind of a throwaway. Kind of get experience, kind of learn the ropes, kind of get yourself comfortable. And I think he did that. He had his moments where it didn't pan out the greatest, but, solid performance from him.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been worse. When I saw him going to the Foyt team, I just kind of knew it was a throwaway year. But, at the end of the day, even though he didn't finish any higher than 10th or whatever, it's still going to be a beneficial season because now he's gone through qualifying procedures. He's driven every track in an IndyCar. He's done the Indy 500. So, now he's going to go into Andretti with a little bit of experience in his back pocket, and hopefully we can see what this magic is all about with Kirkwood. I hope.
You want to know somebody else who had a kind of a throwaway year when they came out Indy Lights?
Callum Islet.
Pato O'Ward.
Yeah, he did.
2019.
Carlin.
Well, for part of 2019.
Yeah. Carlin car. Wow.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. And it kind of faded away, though, after he didn't qualify to Indy. But you have to remember, though, throwaway years, you can't judge his future based off of this year.
Yeah.
Callum Ilott, we kind of spoke about earlier. I don't really know if there's too much more to add.
Yeah, I mean, there's potential there.
There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential. The kid's lightning quick. Yeah. He just needs to put together his racecraft.
And this Juncos Hollinger group, it seems like, like you were saying when they came in 2017, it seems like they're here to win. It seems like they're not messing around. I mean, they have a big shop in Speedway, Indiana.
Okay, let me throw something else at you. if you're coming through the Indy Lights ladder through, USF and Indy Pro and Indy Lights, who's the team you want to be with?
Juncos.
Correct, because they're the dominant team. Ever since Schmidt dropped out, ever since Andretti really scaled back, Juncos is the team to be at. And now they're in the IndyCar program. They're the little kids on the block, but they're making a name for themselves, and they really did help their cause this year. They really did, because they did have great performances in qualifying. They really did have, great starts to the race. They made quite a few highlight reels, but they also made the highlight reels in a bad way whenever they did have something really strong going for them, for a blown engine or for, contact or for, various stupid things that were preventable. Now, the engine failure today was not preventable. That it happens.
Yep,
But throughout the season, they're fast, but they're inconsistent.
I think all they need is a little bit more time. They need Callum to stay there. They just need to build, and they need to build on what they have. Everyone at Juncos just needs. That's all they need is experience. A sponsor wouldn't help. A sponsor wouldn't hurt at all. I think a big sponsor, or at least a sponsor, would help.
After this race, they can no longer be called the only single car team on the grid.
Yep, because they are expanding to 2 cars. We don't know who the second car is going to be as of the recording of this. I've heard rumors it's going to be that, I think, Marcus Armstrong kid from F2, which is the most unbelievable rumor I've ever heard, because why would someone who's winning an F2 come to IndyCar?
Given the current F1 climate, it's not unfeasible. Look at Callum. He was very successful in Formula 2, and he came over.
That's true.
Because the prospects in IndyCar right now are brighter than in Formula 1, and we'll dive into this here in a minute.
Only good things will come from having a 2-car team at Juncos, I think. And, having 2 newer guys may not be favorable. I think having Islet have a year advantage over whoever probably is going to get that second seat is going to be interesting.
But, next year looks to be a bright future for Juncos. Are they going to go out and are they going to take the championship or anything like that? No. Let's be realistic. Yes, it's a bright future for them. But
could they get a top 10 next year? Absolutely.
Could they be consistently in the top 10? Yes. Given
top 15, top half of the field.
Well, they've proven that they're better than AJ Foyt. They've proven that they're better.
They're better than that dang 45 car.
They're better than Rahal Letterman.
Well, we can segue into the next rookie with Christian Lundgaard, the best guy at Rahal Letterman Lanigan, which is no excuse for that whatsoever, because Graham Rahal has been around for a long time. And
won his first IndyCar race.
Yeah, in 2008. And then you have Jack Harvey, who has one of the bigger sponsors in the sport, maybe the biggest sponsor in the sport at the moment.
Outside of NTT.
Yeah, and maybe PNC.
And Verizon.
Yeah, so I'd say top 5 biggest sponsors. Okay, let me rephrase that.
In terms of engagement with the series, they're the
number
biggest.
One. And
maybe outside of Carvana.
Carvana didn't sponsor an entire weekend. But just a shameful showing from the 45. When Christian Lundgaard, in the first half of the season, at the 500, I remember I was dissing him. You remember I was saying, he's scared. Like, you could just tell by the way he was driving to practice. Well, he is scared.
At the same time, though, we didn't... Going back to the month of May, and I feel like we should do a month of May recap at some point, even though we're a couple months out.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to do, daily or bi-daily episodes during May next year. We'll plan it.
There's a lot to talk about.
Here's the thing. Everybody struggled. If you look at the Tuesday practice, that was the only clear day of practice that we had. Wednesday it rained. Thursday it had high winds. Friday it was just not
dangerous winds.
Yeah, right.
We had a 245 mile an hour trap speed that day.
And then also, if you look at the first day of qualifying, it got halfway rained out.
Yeah.
So there was never really any good prep time for Lundgaard or any of the rookies for that matter coming into the Indy 500. There was no good time for anybody.
And it was, Lundgaard, with everything he was handed, he turned it around. The second Grand Prix of Indy, I think that was the first race, he really turned it up and did good. And I am decently impressed with the 30 team and Lundgaard. With Sato last year, that was consistently the best car. And speaking of Sato, I do think it shows that he left Rahal. They have struggled on the ovals. And I think that was part of the thorn in Lundgaard's paw all over the month. But overall, Lundgaard, I mean, I guess you could say he did deserve Rookie of the Year. I have nothing against it. I think he had a great second half of the season. And now, of course, the other guy, David Malukas, to be completely frank, if David Malukas hears this, I apologize. But I did not expect anything from David Malukas when the season started. I remember more than once I asked, wait, who's that in the 18? And then I was just told, oh, his dad owns HMD Trucking. And I was like, oh, okay, that's all I needed to hear. But then my boy shows the fuck up at more than one occasion. Sorry to swear, but that's all I can say.
Well,
he shows up. Gateway, holy hell, he made the Fast Six multiple times this season. I like this David Malukas kid. I think he's going to go far. I think he is the brightest rookie from this class, the brightest rookie class we've had in a long time. I really think David Malukas is going to go somewhere.
I want to kind of put the exclamation mark on Lundgaard. I mean, he ran last year in the Harvest Grand Prix.
I forgot about that. He did.
And he showed up in the Fast Six.
He did.
And he had a solid race.
He did.
And so, and keep in mind, this is another kid, along with Callum Islet, that came from the Formula Feeders. Yeah. This is somebody, that was in line to go into Formula One that pulled out and ended up in IndyCar. And you know what? Good for fucking both Islet and for Lundgaard. And Lundgaard, actually, he was inconsistent throughout the year.
Yeah.
But he put on big performances when he needed to.
Exactly. And I think, rookie years, we were talking about it with Kirkwood, is kind of a throwaway year, almost for everybody. It's not everyone's going to go out and win the 100th running of the Indy 500 in their rookie season or win their first ever race. Or almost win the Indy 500 and win the final race of the year, like with Marco. That just doesn't happen. And I think if you look at what Lundgaard did, you can see that he is able to put together a race. He is able to keep a car on the podium if he starts it on the podium. David Malukas, I think, has a little bit more work. I don't know if that's mainly him or the 18 team. I would kind of lean towards saying it's the 18 team letting him down. But
and actually,
there's competency.
So, Dale Coyne Racing, they suffered a blow a couple years ago. They lost Craig Hampson and Michael Cannon on the engineering staff. When you look at 2019, the Santino Ferrucci Bourdais year, and when you look at even back 17 and 18, those were good times to be a Dale Coyne fan. Because they were actually pulling together strong races. They were pulling together race victories. The 17, 18, 19 time was a great time to be a Dale Coyne fan.
Oh, yeah.
They lost all of their engineering staff in 2020. They lost Hampson over to McLaren. They lost Cannon over to, Dixon and the CGR team. They were kind of in no man's land. I mean, they've had fucking Ed Jones last year. Which, again, Ed Jones, he performed well in 17, but it all fell apart for him last year. And they also lost Vassar Sullivan.
The thing with Dale Coyne is we're going to throw it back to 2016, late 2016, when the news came out that Sebastian Bourdais was going to Dale Coyne Racing. I think a lot of us IndyCar fans were like, what? He's going to Dale Coyne? Like, are you kidding me? And he won. Didn't he win St. Pete that year?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's so great to see. I said this to somebody, I don't remember who, earlier this year.
Yeah.
It's so great to see that 18 team, even though they have had a little bit of a dip in quality, they can still make the Fast Six. They could still realistically win a race. And it's so great to see that Sebastian Bourdais was able to build up that 18 team, and that it is...
And then it faded away.
But it's back. It's not as bad. Because keep in mind, we're not like, the Pippa Man getting black flagged at Milwaukee days anymore.
Correct. And we're not at Carlos Huerta's.
Yeah, hey, he won a race. So he's won more races than Connor Daly.
I mean... This isn't just like pay drivers or anything like that anymore.
Yeah, and even though you could make the argument that David Malukas is a pay driver, I would say look at his results from this season. Look at his
results
driver.
Through the feeders.
Yeah,
honestly, he's not just a pay driver. Yes, his dad owns a pretty big trucking company, and yes, his dad is footing the bills. But motherfucker is actually showing up, and he's doing shit with the opportunities that he is given. He is not just pucking around at the back of the motherfucking field. He is actually giving fucking results.
I know exactly who you're talking about right now, and we're just gonna keep on moving. I legitimately believe, I said this when we were watching the race, I legitimately believe David Malukas could get a drive on his own merit. I could totally see him being in the number 10 NTT data car with just a little HMD sticker on it.
However, he's already locked down at coin for next year.
But why would you change it? If you're succeeding and you only have good things to grow on, why would you change that?
I guarantee you the buyout of a Dale Coyne contract is a hell of a lot less than the $10 million for Ganassi.
So, hey, Zach, if you're listening, put Mo Lucas in the 6 car. Good things might happen.
Well, and also, HMD is doing 8 cars in Indy Lights.
That's half the field.
Hold on. If you go back to 2017,
That
2018, that's the field plus 1.
Yeah.
Fucking bring
I was gonna
Davey
say that.
Hamilton Jr. back.
Let's ignore how David Malukas' dad is basically funding the entire Indy Lights series at this point. By the way, I don't think we're ever going to talk about Indy Lights on this show. I don't care about Indy Lights. Do you care about Indy Lights?
No.
Okay. Maybe one day here. So we always say we don't want to complain without offering a solution. So we're going to put a sticky note on this. We'll come back. We'll do an entire episode about fixing the Indy Lights series and the problems with the Indy Lights series. That'll be fun. That's going to be like 6 hours long.
Well, this one is closing in on 90 minutes, so...
Yeah. But it's the postseason. We have more to talk about.
Right. And this is a way to do a first episode.
And we haven't even gotten to the biggest thing to talk about. The McLaren situation with Alex Palou, and if that domino falls, all the other shit that's going to go down. Because I mean, I doubt it. I'd say 70-30 that he stays at Ganassi?
So, let's recap this if you haven't heard, if you live under a rock, or if you're in a nursing home or hospital for some reason whatsoever. So, Alex Palou, last year's champion, so the Chip Ganassi Racing announced a couple months back that he was staying. Palou came back on Twitter later that evening and said, no, I'm not. And then McLaren swiftly welcomed him. This has evolved into a court case. At first, it was at the Indiana state level, and it's gone now to federal level, and it's gone into the court of arbitration. And
Isn't it sealed?
Yeah, unfortunately. So, here's the thing. McLaren recently asked for an amount for the buyout of Palou's contract, which means one thing and one thing only. The arbitration process ain't going too well. It means that they're losing because everybody knows that Chip Ganassi Racing contracts are pretty fucking ironclad.
Yeah.
And there's not an easy way to just get out of them. So, the buyout's $10 million. And that is a big pill to swallow for anybody.
But my thinking is...
And keep in mind, McLaren, they faced some financial issues relatively recently. They sold their McLaren HQ. Now, they still have possession of the building, but they sold it.
I don't think that they would have let it get to this point, and I don't think McLaren would have handled it this way if they weren't ready for a buyout. I don't think they expected the buyout to be $10 million. I think they probably thought like 2.5, 3, and I think that Zach was totally ready and willing to buy him for that much money. And then Chip's like, psych, it's $10 million, and I'm going to force Palou to honor this contract, which I think it was a... wasn't it one where Ganassi could opt to extend the contract without Alex's consent and extend his services?
So let's reverse this to 2020. You're Alex Palou. You've completed a year with Dale Coyne Racing Team Go.
It was Team Go. Can't forget the Team Go part.
Your biggest memorable race was the Road America race. Mm-hmm. And Chip Ganassi Racing, they have an opening in the 10 car because Rosenquist is leaving to McLaren.
Yep.
Ironically. What do? Fuck yeah, you sign. You sign a 2-year deal.
Oh, yeah.
And in that deal, there is an option for a 3rd year if Chip likes your shit. So, if this was a contract... Now, again, IndyCar contracts are not normally public. So, we don't know the exact wording or anything like that. But if it was one of those dealios where Chip can flex the option without Palou's agreement, and I believe that's the course that we took to get to this point, then... Because the wording of the initial statement was, Chip Ganassi Racing has taken up its option with Alex Palou to extend his contract for a 3rd year.
And that's the thing, is that you have to pay close attention to how all of these tweets from everybody and all these press releases from everybody have been worded. Because, you could look at it as...
Well, okay, this just came to my mind then. So if they announce like, hey, we are taking our option for Plo for a third year, and Plo says he didn't agree to it, it's like, you agreed to it 2 fucking years ago.
Exactly. And then if that's the thing is like...
That's where you find yourself in this weird little trap.
And you wonder if this whole situation was brought about by A, Alex Palou not understanding how an option contract works, B, Zach Brown not giving a shit, or C, Zach Brown trying to force a buyout of Alex Palou to fill the 7 car because he's tired of Felix qualifying pole and dropping the ball mid-race.
But then you look at Felix ever since the Indy 500, he's been a different Felix.
Yeah, he's trying to survive.
He's not wanting to go to Formula E.
But my point is if, this whole thing, I always hate this thing of like, oh, they're driving for the drop. They should be driving like that from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't a fucking cakewalk. This is, motorsports.
Yeah, it's like at Gateway in 2018 when Ed Jones was in question at Ganassi. He just magically had a top 5 race when he's been running in the back all year. It's like, dude, if you've been doing this all season and you've been driving like that all season, you wouldn't be in question. Like, Felix is, I don't know, because Zach Brown seems like he doesn't care, and Zach Brown gets what Zach Brown wants. But I think I don't know, it's just weird. It's such a weird situation because, like, Felix, I thought I heard Felix isn't driving for McLaren at all next year. And I might be mixing him up with Ricardo.
That's Ricardo, too.
Okay,
but it's just such a fluid situation. And honestly, here's the thing. If the word right now, as it sits, is it looks like Felix is going to be staying.
Yep, to keep the seat warm.
At this rate, if I'm Zach Brown, I let Plo fucking finish his contract with Ganassi. Don't fucking let them sideline him because that's going to hurt Plo more than it's going to help him.
Yep.
Let him finish the contract. You're not going to pay $10 million. Chip Ganassi is fucking happy. And you get to one more year with Felix. Everybody's happy. It's the best case scenario. But with how muddy and thick this water is, I don't think it's going to happen.
I think things are gonna stay relatively the same because of course Ganassi on their press releases for 2023 are gonna be confident Plo staying,
and they still are insisting that Plo is staying.
And the only question mark at Ganassi I've read is Jimmy Johnson. That's from Racer.com, but it's like the one thing that I say, I just thought about this, that might be helping Palou is the fact that there's not a great rookie crop. A lot of the rookies are already signed again or have multi-year contracts, so it's not like Chip can just be like, okay, fine, screw you, I'm going to hire Kirkwood for a year.
Well, Malukas is more of a, because the thing is, Kirkwood has always been an Andretti kid.
Malukas was the name I heard the most when I heard about the 10.
Well, that's because he didn't have a contract.
Yeah, and also he was showing, and he has money, and I assume Chip would like having more than just NTT data on the 10 car.
Well, NTT data did carry the 9 car for a year.
Yeah, I do wonder how much they're paying for that 10 car because they have been around for quite a while now.
Yeah, they were.
It's almost 10 years. They started in 2013. It was a one-off for the 500 short
with Briscoe. Yeah,
and then they came back in 2014. So, it's, I don't know, it's just such a weird, because every way you look at it, it's like, if Palou stays, then next year things are going to get interesting. But if Palou doesn't, then because if Palou is the big domino, because, things look like they're going to stay about the same until that Palou domino either stays up or falls. If it falls, then Felix is probably out. They're going to have to scramble to put somebody in the 10 car, so we're going to have another Darren Manning situation on our hands.
Either that, or they bring back the old reliable TK. They bring him back for one more season, and we're going to get our 4th retirement season for Tony Kanaan.
Yeah. To be fair, TK's retirement season was totally screwed over.
His retirement season has lasted for 4 fucking years, okay? TK's retirement season has lasted longer than COVID.
It's excuse me. It's so weird because, last year, you heard TK, oh, this is my last 500, this is my last 500, and now I've heard rumors that he's coming back. I've heard that from Lauren Kanaan.
Yeah. So,
and honestly, if you finish 3rd in the 500 with the team that won the 500, why wouldn't you come back?
And you did better than the 3 other cars.
You'd be stupid not to.
The 2 centerpieces.
Yeah, even if Tony Kanaan comes back and starts 33rd and finishes 25th, last car on the lead lap, it doesn't matter because, what has he got to lose? at this point, and that's why I like that one off, and that's why I like the idea of him coming back again for next year. But
I never thought you'd be like an advocate of TK coming back.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just a fan of good racing, and that's all I want to see. And I think I don't know. I mean, going back to Palou going to McLaren, I don't think he would be as good. I think because that McLaren team, it's going to be a new team, a new car, a new operation.
Well, and I did want to point this out. It seems like some of the bad blood between Chip Ganassi Racing and Palou has kind of settled.
Yeah, I heard up, I think at the second Indy Grand Prix, I heard that Chip still hasn't talked to Palou, and he was there gang stalking him in Victory Lane today.
And they've been they had, it was reported on the NBC on the broadcast. They had a pretty long talk before the race today. So maybe Chip's like, hey, I'll give you an extra $100,000 if you stay with me for the rest of your contract. There has to be an amicable way out. There has to be that brass ring that says, hey, this is the best way out of the situation for everybody involved.
Yeah, something I think might be playing a role is Townsend Bell talked about how when Rossi announced he was out of Andretti, with that, generally in racing, you are cut off from certain information, engineering information and data. And, they don't want you to know what they're doing to their engines or their dampers, the open areas of development.
Well, and especially given how Andretti and McLaren are direct rivals. If this was a couple of years ago, it wouldn't matter as much if he had joined Schmidt-Peterson. But now it does matter.
And it's I think where I'm going with this is I don't want to say that hurt Palou a little bit at the end of this season, because I feel like, he did do a great job with all this adversity and all these stories and always being the focus.
But he was able to drown it out.
Yeah, exactly. He won by 30 seconds today. So I hope that doesn't become a problem next year, but that's why it's like, if there is an opportunity for him to go, maybe he should, because he wouldn't have any of those issues of Chip Ganassi stonewalling him, because they know, why are we going to tell this guy how we gained 300ths through the second or through this turn when he's just going to take that information to McLaren next year?
Fair.
And I wonder, I don't know how it works. I'm not in the garages. I'm not in the meetings. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if Townsend Bell is just trying to start drama. But if that is the case and that is reality, I do think we are going to see the lasting impacts of this McLaren announcement next year.
All right, so I guess to our final talking point. I know that went from rookies to, we did transition there, but Formula One.
Oh yes.
And this one isn't going to be specifically about Formula One racing right now. We're not going to cover Monza on this one or anything like that.
Honestly, I didn't pay enough attention. Anyways.
So, and yes, there's the whole Colton Herta situation, and I'm fine with Colton going to F1. It's not going to affect me that much. I don't give a damn.
Yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep.
But I want to talk about the fan base on this one. So, the fan base is very opposed to Colton joining Formula One, which is fine. They can have their opinions. The thing that I take issue with is the F1 fan base right now is more toxic than it has ever been.
Yeah.
And it all like the Formula One fan base, especially the Formula One Twitter, and you guys can be pissed off all you want. That's fine. So, the F1 Twitter is absolutely toxic. And Max Verstappen won. That's all we're going to say about Monza.
Yep.
If you look at the tweets or the replies, I should say, from Max talking about the win, and you look at the comments saying you're not the real race winner. They should have had one more lap. The race shouldn't finish under safety car. You only won because you had the best car, so you're not a real winner. Lewis Hamilton was doing that. And listen, I'm not a big Max Verstappen fan. I'm not. This is just saying it from a, objective point of view.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating. It is. This is why it's hard for me to get back into Formula One. It's just like how hard it is for me to get back into NASCAR, because that fan base is equally as toxic.
Oh, yeah.
But that's
yeah. If Chase Elliott wins, the people who hate him talk about it more than the people who like him. Explain that to me.
Well, then you got the people who like him as well.
Yeah. Same thing applies to F1. The people who hate Max Verstappen probably say his name more than people who like Max Verstappen.
Correct. And okay. So those people who take issue with Max Verstappen having a dominant season and running away with the championship, on course to win his second championship. Listen. I'm not saying this as a Max Verstappen fan. I'm not saying this as a Max Verstappen opponent. I'm saying this as somebody who looks at the history books that will forever say that Max Verstappen won last year's championship. Whether you like it or not, that's the way it's going to go down. That's a fact.
Yep.
That's a fact. That's talking in only facts. That's not me taking sides. I think what happened last year was unfortunate and it should have been handled differently. But it's the way it played out.
That's the 2002 Indy 500. It's the same thing. Yeah, I don't like it, but that's the decision the race officials made. That's the decision that the drivers made. That's the way it played out, and that's the way it's going to be written in the history books, and that's just the way it is.
I mean, for those saying that, oh, hey, Max Verstappen didn't win today because it was under safety car. Max Verstappen isn't a deserving winner, blah, blah, blah. And, for those of you shitting on F1 because the Red Bull team is the dominant team right now, where were you crying, bitching, and moaning when fucking Mercedes was doing this shit from 14 to, 2020?
When Ferrari was winning literally every weekend from 2003 to whenever Mercedes...
2000.
Yeah,
really.
2000, to whenever Mercedes started doing their thing.
When were you guys crying, bitching, and moaning back then? Have some fucking consistency. And F1 Twitter, I'm going to say this loud and clear. You can go fuck yourselves. Yeah. So
I'm going to give my words of wisdom about this. So, at the end of the day, I mean, I get the mentality of wanting to say, oh, X is better than Y, and here's the reasons, and you're wrong, and all this. But at the end of the day, we all like racing. I can sit down. I mean, primarily, I like the Indycar series and NASCAR, and I can sit down and I can watch a kick-ass IMSA race and say, that was awesome. I can sit down and watch a good F1 race and say, that was awesome. I can go to NHRA and have the time of my life. And I don't understand where all this stupid, oh, this series is better, comes in. I mean, all it does is hurt racing overall. I think racing is a fun sport. It's unique in the way of, just the fandom and, the way you experience it, the way you talk about it, the way you share your experiences, the way you bond with others over racing. And it's such a damn shame to see stupid little things get in the way. And I know that's just the way the world is. That's the way the internet is. But we're all the same. We all like cars going fast in straight lines, circles, road courses, whatever. It's all the same. It's all competition. It's all... but that's the beauty of racing, is that it's all so different. It's not like football where, there's Australian and Canadian leagues and all that and rules, but, there's a discipline for everybody, and we just all need to respect everybody's chosen disciplines that we all like, because it's all hard, it's all different, it's all fun, it's all unique, it all takes skill. There's no way Lewis Hamilton could get into an Indycar and rip around Long Beach and qualify pole, but that also goes both ways. There's no way Will Power could get in a Mercedes F1 car and qualify pole at Imola.
And here's another thing, and this is a different, kind of switching gears, is for the F1 fan base that views IndyCar as nothing more than a feeder series.
Why would a feeder series have an F1 championship race and have wins from Jimmy Clark and Graham Hill and Juan Pablo Montoya?
Okay, why would Fernando Alonso skip your biggest race to come to ours?
Yeah, exactly. Why would it be the biggest deal in the freaking world where nobody shuts up about it when Fernando qualifies the 500?
Okay.
If it's not a big deal.
Okay, and then there's the other cross effect to it. Why would your F1 reject of Rossi come over and all of a sudden steal the show? Why would Grosjean, after a semi-successful career in F1, decide to come here and actually enjoy it and stay?
Yeah, and Marcus Ericsson,
right,
the guy who in F1
here's the thing. With all these drivers that we listed, with the exception of Alonso, they had shitty teams.
Yep.
It shows that F1... And why is Callum Ilott coming over? Why is Christian Lundgaard coming over?
The opportunities are here, and this is the thing, is, if an F1 fan is listening to this and they're getting mad about what we're saying, we're not implying that F1 is an inferior product, but we are saying is that IndyCar is the top form of open-wheel racing in the United States. It's a totally different discipline than Formula One. It's not like, they have $1 billion budget and they can spend millions of dollars. It's a spec series. It's spec engines.
It's driver focused.
Yes, it's let's put these guys in the same cars. You can adjust the cars to this point. Who's the best driver?
Right.
And that's why the racing is so close.
Okay, you can say that to an extent.
That's,
Because if you look at Alonso's first run at Indy versus his second and third...
Well, yeah, but that's because the team didn't know what they were doing. The support wasn't... I mean, that goes back to the Andretti working as a team. Would Alonso have... Well, no, we have proof that Alonso isn't anything at Indy without help. And that's why working together is important. That's what we've learned today in this episode is that
teamwork makes the dream work. It took us an hour and 40 minutes to come up with that.
That's the whole point we were trying to make today.
I guess there's going to be life lessons at the end. So this is not just a racing podcast. It's a life podcast.
But
we're going to be covering all types of motorsports except for Formula E because they don't have a motor.
Yeah, and electric E, whatever.
Extreme E.
Yeah, whatever. So to close my thoughts on the F1 thing, it's just... If you're going to be negative about it, and same thing goes for any form of racing, if you're going to be one of those negative people, oh, I want a short track in NASCAR, and then they're going to add one, oh, I don't want a short track, not like that.
Oh, and road courses.
And road courses. Stop it. Stop it. Okay? It's just, you're allowed to be upset, you're allowed to have emotions, you're allowed, but just, it's... We all need to stop taking shit so personally, man. Like, when I say I don't like Colton Herta, I don't need people to be shocked and awed and offended. I just want them to go, oh, okay. Because I've had people come to me like, oh, I hate your favorite driver. And I'm like, okay.
Actually, and this is a transition into kind of the last little segment. It's not going to take too long, I promise. I know this episode has gone extremely long, but... There was a lot to digest from this.
I mean, this is our IndyCar season wrap-up.
Correct.
Basically.
So... we went to the U.S. Nationals last weekend, and me and our amazing, greatest, tons of fun. That's his literal. That's what he literally calls himself. So it's not as an insult, buddy. I love you. We did an interview with Tony Schumacher, and he said it perfectly. We are entertainers.
Exactly.
He is living his best life because, and this is his words. You can go watch it on the Mighty Mac YouTube channel. There's the plug. Yep. Do it. If you love drag racing at all, go check out our friend Noah.
Or
Mighty
you
Mac.
want to know more about drag racing.
Correct.
Because it's a fun world once you get into it.
Yes, it is. But we'll get into that in a minute. But he said, listen, I'm 51 years old, and I get to get into a race car, and I'm loving life. Why can't we have that across the board?
Yeah, exactly.
Why does it have to be IndyCar fans versus NASCAR fans versus F1 fans versus sports car fans? Why is it why can they openly will say that they are entertainers? Now, yes, it's an expensive sport, no matter which way you look at it. Yes, there's no true superior sport to another. They all have their own disciplines, and if we could actually open our own goddamn eyes for just a second and put aside all this stupid bullshit and say, hey, every racing series has something different to offer, and every driver has something different to offer the series, then maybe, just maybe, things will be better. And hold on, I want to say this. Granted, there are drivers that we should say, hey, no, they're not great people, and we should not give them the time of day. One of them being Jerry Vips for his, comments.
John Herb. Google it.
Hey, we got the John Herb reference in there. Fuck yeah.
I knew I was going to do it.
There are drivers that we shouldn't give the time of day, but the legitimate ones like Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Jimmy Johnson, Scott Dixon, Juan Pablo Montoya, Sebastian Buemi, these drivers who are legitimately trying to show off their craft in different series. And I know you're going to disagree with this, but Fernando Alonso did a great thing for motorsports.
He helped at least unblur that line between, or make that line not as hard between IndyCar and F1
and sports cars.
Yeah, and sports cars. Yeah.
He opened up new worlds, and it has helped. And as much as we like to make fun of Fernando for not qualifying, he did a favor to a lot of people. And I think we could all get along better if we just kind of and take motorsports for what it is. Yes, At the end of the day, yes, they're fighting for championships. There's money on the line. And yes, it's still a dangerous sport and lives can be on the line. But, when we take it as, hey, we can't, us people cannot affect the outcome of these races. So let's just sit back and enjoy it. We can have our opinions, but let's not make it to where, we're calling to violence and aiming to hurt people. If you're out there saying Max Verstappen should die, that's too far. We should not be calling for violence or action against drivers because of our own emotions. Racing has always been an emotional sport. It always will be an emotional sport. And it shows the passion of the fans, but sometimes the passion boils over. And all I can ask is just, please keep the emotions in check. At the end of the day, we cannot affect anything that happens. We just need to show our passion and our love for the sport, no matter what discipline it is, in a respectful and kind manner. And again, we're all entitled to our opinions, but we shouldn't call for violence or anything against anybody, no matter who it is. Lewis Hamilton, Max, no matter who. Or even Michael Massey.
Yeah.
So, on that note, we're going to end that
I was going to bounce off the entertainment. Like, I'm not going to sit here and I don't want to sound like I'm tooting my own horn and all that, but something I have worked on and I have found has helped me enjoy racing more overall. So, real life example, the 2022 GMR Grand Prix, the May Grand Prix of Indycar. Like I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of Colton Herta. Of course, Colton Herta won that race. And I didn't leave the race, mad, Colton Herta won. I was like, you know what? He earned it, and I had fun today. I got to see an amazing race, and that's all. I mean, that's just, you're going to enjoy it more if you get your head out of the gutter and you're like, did I see a good race? Yes. Did the winner deserve it? Yes.
Oh.
Did Max deserve it today? Absolutely he did.
Bubba Wallace won at Kansas.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Let's go. All right.
Yeah, exactly. That is really cool.
And see, that's I don't know. I mean, I like.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
And he's locked into the next round for the Owners' Championship.
Oh, good.
Because he's in Kurt Busch's car.
Yeah, they switched to the 45. So, real-time update. Bubba Wallace wins in Kansas.
And Christopher Bell is the only driver locked in the next round of the playoffs.
Wow. But, I said,
on the bubble, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Chase Briscoe, and Kevin Harvick.
All right. It sounds about right.
But anyways.
But like you said, racing is an emotional sport and always will be. And, you're going to have those days where you have that moment of elation where, your driver's in second for the third year in a row and the guy in front of him crashes and they win the Indy 500.
I've felt that many times the last couple of years with Scott Dixon.
You're going to have days like that where you're like, oh my God, you're so almost in tears, you're so happy. And then you're going to have days where your driver doesn't make the Indy 500 and you're going to be in a sourpuss mood. But you got to remember, at the end of the day, don't let it affect. Just don't be negative about it because it's going to ruin it for everybody.
I can provide an example. I can provide
2017.
No, better.
2022.
2021, the Indy 500.
Yeah.
Scott Dixon, we talked about, had that pit lane penalty. I've never been a fan of Helio Castroneves. I have never, and I never will be. And I will say that openly. But seeing him win the fourth and seeing fans climbing the fence and celebrating with him, just all the elation, you couldn't help but feel happy for Helio. And you couldn't help but feel special for being there.
Exactly. It's,
you could dislike somebody but still be happy for them.
Yeah, like I'm not the biggest Rossi fan in the world, but you heard me earlier say I want him to go to McLaren. I want him to do well. I want him to reinvent himself, and I want him to kick ass and win a title.
Right. And I think if more people had that mentality, then it'd be great.
Yeah, it's like racing it's this beautiful thing. I think how I'm going to end my thoughts on this is racing, no matter if it's Formula One, USAC dirt cars, sportsman class at NHRA, the bomber class at Kokomo Speedway, the World Endurance Championship, whatever, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we all love this very similar thing, and I hate how everyone's so closed off to sharing this beautiful thing. Like, I want to know why the Grand Prix of Monaco is so important, and I want to know what it's like to experience that and what it means to somebody who grew up on that side of the fence like I did with IndyCar. And I think this healthy discourse is a good thing, and I just wish we had more of that.
So switching gears to the final topic, as I mentioned earlier, last weekend we attended the U.S. Nationals, the NHRA Dodge Power Brokers U.S. Nationals with our good friend. We was helping out Mr. Mighty Mac himself, and I met Stan. Amazing man.
Legend. If you're listening, I don't know, but what's up?
So, here's the dealio. we got invited to it to cover it with media credentials and everything alongside Noah. Now, Brody and I personally didn't. Noah brought us along. And first and foremost, Noah, I know you're going to listen to this. You're our brother from another mother and currently different state. And we love you to death and we miss you already. Dropping you off at the airport, I actually got emotional. Thank you so much. And to the folks at NHRA, I doubt that you'll ever hear this. I hope you do. I don't want to name drop anybody specifically. You did an amazing job. Everybody in that media center, everybody within the HRA, you did an amazing job of making these rookies feel welcome. Nobody gave us a sideways look. Nobody snorted or sniffled at us. Who are these guys? Everybody made us felt warm and welcome. They gave nothing but their best. They gave us helpful tips. All the drivers. One in particular, Clay Milliken. Oh, yeah. He, after we finished our interview, he said, "You guys don't need a big $1,000 fucking camera. I record all my shit on my iPhone." And it was amazing. And Tony Schumacher, he's a 10-time U.S. Nationals winner, an 8-time NHRA Top Fuel champion. Arguably, or not even arguably, he's gonna go down as one of the best all time in a Top Fuel car. One of the and he looks like he will shank you if you say one wrong thing to him. He does have that look of I will fucking kill you. But no, he is legitimately one of the nicest guys you will ever fucking meet. And Sean Brown too.
I want to meet Matt Hagan. He looks like he'd
Ron
be
Capps.
in A-hole or the biggest teddy bear you've ever met. And that's why I want to meet Matt Hagan.
So, to everybody, and it was an amazing weekend. So if you, live within, I'd say 2 hours of an NHRA event, fucking go.
Yeah.
Don't even question it, just go, because you will enjoy yourself.
It's just fun.
Make a weekend out of it.
That's
because
what racing is.
Make a weekend out of it, because the thing with the NHRA is you cannot just show up for the finals. You need to experience the whole weekend, the qualifying and all that, because you get the full story only if you attend the full weekend. And also on that note, don't just show up for the nitros.
Yeah.
Show up for Pro Stock motorcycles. Show up for Pro Stock itself. Show up for the other classes.
Sportsmen.
Yeah, show up for the sportsman shit. Because those actually provide legitimately good drag racing.
And those are just the guys out there doing it. I mean, we spoke to probably a good 5 of them, and most of them were just like, yeah, I've lost over $1 million doing this, but I just love it. And that's what it's all about.
Right.
And that's
you don't get more grassroots than that.
Yeah.
And sanctioned by a major, series.
Yep. It was a... I'll say I didn't know anything about NHRA going into it, and now I know about it, and now I appreciate it for what it is. Because it has a different vibe. It almost has that sports car vibe where, you're... the thing is with NHRA, for those who are unaware, any ticket is a paddock pass.
Right. I mean, literally, you can go the same areas as us with the media credentials. Literally. The only thing it doesn't get you is right down there with, if a photo bib would, but... Yeah. You know what? I don't think you'd want to go down there anyways.
No, it's scary. It's scary.
But NHRA is definitely an amazing product, and, I can't wait to cover some more events with them. I believe Gainesville is on the agenda, plus quite a few others. I know Gateway. Noah's trying to convince us to do Route 66 with him, but that's a difficult one because there is a scheduling conflict there. But, it is a series definitely to pay attention to. And again, from the bottom of my heart to all the folks at NHRA, I really want to thank you for everything you did for us, everything you did to help us out, and the fans. The fans were amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Stan in particular, if you're in Indianapolis sometime, contact me and you can be on this show too. I will bring the booze. I will bring the booze. So, anyways, I think that's going to wrap it up.
Yep.
So
2 hours.
1 hour, 53 minutes.
Not bad for a first one.
We will. So about what we plan on doing, we do want to add a video version to this. It's a process in the works. We'll add more microphones and make it like a semi-legit thing. I would love to have desks. Yeah, I would also love to have desks instead of my kitchen table. I would also love to have guests. David Land.
Oh yeah, we could get him on here easy.
Yeah, David Land. This is a call out, buddy. Come on, let's do an episode.
It's okay, we'll just go over to his house with the microphone. Force him to do it.
Yeah, we'll steal his shit.
We'll take the media approach and shove a camera in his face so he can't be mean to us.
So, and who knows? We might be able to get some drivers and other people on the line, too.
Oh, yeah.
That would be interesting. But anyways, that's it for the video. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right.
So thank you for listening to us ramble for 2 hours.
Well, hopefully you learned something. Definitely comment, rate, subscribe, all that 2012 YouTube bullshit. And as always, guys.
Yep, thank you.
I was going to do the
peace
out. All right. And that's it. Maybe. Yep, try to stop hitting the record button. Anyways, all right. Thanks a lot, guys. And we'll see you in episode 2 coming soon.